From Super7 comes a new Godzilla -1 figure as part of their Godzilla Ultimates figure line. Slated for a September 2024 release date, this figure is up for pre-order now. Based on the 3D models used for the movie, this figure stands at 8.4 inches tall and 14.22 inches long, and features multiple points of articulation. So this announcement came to me as a surprise because I had no idea that Super7 would be making any merchandise for this new Godzilla -1 movie. Of course, we know that they have the Toho license because that's what they've been making for the last couple of years with their Ultimates line and their reaction figure line as well. So it is really cool to see them delve into, I guess, a new era of Godzilla, especially being the newest era of Godzilla, and from such a fantastic film. I'm not going to go too much into the movie itself. I've seen it once so far at the time of this recording, and I will likely see it at least once more while it's still in theaters. But the short of it is, man, this is a fantastic movie, and this design is quickly becoming a favorite of mine. With that said, I am cautiously optimistic about this announcement from Super7 for this particular figure. As anyone may know who has been collecting the Ultimate series of figures or knows anything about them, the prior releases that we've gotten so far have not exactly been up to par with the images that we've seen, and while that's nothing new with toy collecting in general, we're always shown prototypes. With Super7 in particular, it appears that what they tend to do is actually show renders of their figures, so they're not even the physical prototypes. And as far as I can tell with the images that I'm sourcing here from Super7's site directly, all of these images I believe are renders of the figure. But the fact that this particular release is being based off of the 3D model from the movie itself may be a good thing for it, and perhaps this will be one of the better Ultimates releases, so I am hopeful for it. At this time, I have pre-ordered it myself, so I am pretty excited for it. I like the size of these Ultimates figures because they're bigger than the usual Bandai's and Monster Arts type figures, so it's cool to have something on the bigger side because that's definitely what I prefer. But with all of that out of the way, let's take a closer look at the images that Super7 has released, beginning with this one. Now, regardless of if this is a render or a picture of the figure itself, this is just a great photo, and I think it speaks perfectly to this awesome design of this new version of Godzilla. Since this is based off of the 3D models from the movie, the details on here look exceptional. They look very crisp. There is so much going on with this design in terms of texture, and really my favorite Godzilla designs in general just have so much texture. That's just something that looks great in figure and statue format, and based on this, it looks like they really captured that very well here. Of course, this is articulated, so you could see on this left thigh here, there's that seam, so you could see that there will be leg articulation. Compared to the Monster Arts, it's a little hard to say. Now, I don't have the Monster Arts figure myself at this time, but I know that that figure does have some toe articulation. I doubt that this one will. This one will be much more limited in terms of articulation compared to something like that. As far as I can tell from the description of the figure from Super7 directly, they don't specify how many points of articulation this figure does have. The images here do show that the tail does kind of bend pretty far, which looks good, but I am doubtful to an extent of how much this figure can articulate. Like I said, it kind of does look like, based on these images, it bends pretty decently far out. This particular picture not only has it coming out, but curving back in, which is interesting. I wonder if the true articulation for this figure will be as articulated as it appears here, because that would be pretty dynamic if you could get the tail to pose to this extent. Moving closer to the figure, we get a great look at this roaring portrait. They really captured that angry expression that this Godzilla has through basically the entirety of the movie. With this closer image, we do have a great sense of this varied texture that I was mentioning before. From the head to the body, the chest, the fingers, the dorsals, everything sort of has its own patterns that kind of clash with each other. And another element that I like as well are those kind of highlighted sections that have different colors to them, which is true to the design of Godzilla in the film. He does have certain areas that are kind of highlighted. I don't know if it's meant to be like dirt, mud, or other elements, but it does add this great sense of depth to his appearance. Closer to the mouth, we have our sort of pinkish, almost purple tones for the tongue and gums. And of course, we have individually sculpted teeth, which is pretty impressive because once we get these in hand, these are going to be pretty small teeth. So it's cool that they have that level of detail there based on this image. Now, this image here, we do get that roaring portrait off to the side and the closed mouth look here. Either way you go, man, he looks ferocious. I love it. But this particular image, it is a render, yes, but it does look really cool. I feel like you get a good sense of Godzilla in a sort of neutral light. So here you can really see those varied highlights that I'm talking about. particularly in the face. It looks very light brown compared to the majority of the figure, but again, that color kind of runs throughout the body. Here we have it on the chest, the arms, the lower body, and the feet. Not sure exactly if it's supposed to be mud, dirt, or other elements, or something else related to the movie, which I will not mention, but I do like this different approach aesthetically to Godzilla. I love sandy, sort of muddy tones, especially in Showa era Godzilla. That happens a lot with the suits where they kind of crust up a little bit with like dirt colors, and it just adds some nice variation and brings out the depth of like the suits. Or in this particular version, since it's CGI, just the design itself, you get a great look at these scales that are otherwise somewhat hidden when you have them in more natural light or shadow. Definitely one pose that you could strike with this figure straight from the movie is when he roars. That's something that we see in the trailer too, where he kind of has his arms back, he's tilted forward. That would be a fun pose to have for sure. This particular video is, of course, of the render of the figure directly from Super7's website, but you do get a good 360-degree look at the overall figure itself, from front to back, the silhouette. I've said this before, I think in another video, but this has to be possibly my favorite set of dorsal plates on any Godzilla design. There's something about it that I really love, but the overall look is very spiky, which looks great. Again, it looks like they did capture the appearance of Godzilla very well. Now, with this $85 price point, I do feel like it's reasonable to ask for at least some accessories. We, of course, have this alternate roaring portrait, but more than that, I would like maybe at least some destroyed buildings, or maybe even some ships particular to this film. That would look really cool. I just feel like it would make this price more justifiable. But aside from that, I am impressed from the images we have so far, but considering Super7's inconsistent track record so far with their Ultimates, I am cautiously optimistic, like I said earlier, but the key word here is optimistic. I still am hopeful that this can be a good figure, and like I mentioned a few times already in the video, since this is based off of the 3D models from the movie itself, maybe this will be the thing that elevates this one above the rest of the Ultimates that they've done so far. So these are my overall thoughts on the figure. I am looking forward to this release, and I hope it does turn out well, but I am curious to know what you guys think. Have you pre-ordered this figure? Have you seen Godzilla -1? Leave your comments down below. If you like this content, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and taking a look at my other Godzilla figure content on the channel as well. Lastly, thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.